This is a demonstration on how you can take your sketch and transfer it to your block. I would start out by making a sketch the exact same size as your block so that you don't need to worry about enlarging or reducing the size of your sketch. And I have coded my sketch so that I can remember which areas I want to be white, which will be my lightest gray, which will be my medium tone, and which will be my darkest values. So once you have your sketch all drawn to scale, you will want to reverse the image because on the wood block, you want the image to appear as a mirror version of the way you want your final image to print. On some images, this may not be that important, but if you have words or an asymmetrical composition, it can feel very different if it's mirrored. And so I usually reverse my image before I put it on the block, just so I'm not surprised by the final print. One way to reverse the image is to use a copy machine and put it on a mirror setting. So if you have access to the copier at the school, or if you have Photoshop, you can do a mirroring filter on your program there and reverse the image and then print it out as a toner-based print. If you do not have access to a copy machine or some mechanical way of mirroring the image, you can use tracing paper. It just is a little bit of an extra step. I'm going to align the corner of my tracing paper with the corner of the sketch so that I have less cropping to do later. I'm just going to go ahead and draw in where the edge of the image is so that later when I'm trying to transfer this to my block, I know exactly where that composition should be. And as I transfer the image, I'm not going to worry so much about all of the shading, but I do want to make sure that I've got all of the key contours indicated. I'm going to tape down the tracing paper in a couple of spots so that it doesn't shift on me as I'm transferring those lines. So again, I'm only worried about the most important contours of this image, and I won't necessarily trace the whole design in an effort to save a little bit of time here on this video, but I will transfer a couple of the key contours at least so that you can see how this might work. You might want to note where different values change, so I could do a quick little shading here to help me remember where I want the darks and where I want the lights to be. All right, I think I got most of the image. That's pretty good. I might add a little bit more here just for my own reference. All right, so this is the right reading direction. I'm going to, in order to transfer it, I'm going to flip it over so that I'm looking through the drawing at the back side, which gives me a mirror image. So now we're thinking about how we can transfer that to our block. There are a couple of ways we can do this. You can draw directly on the block if you're confident about that. But if you've already gone ahead and made a mirror image, the easiest way is probably just to put a piece of transfer paper underneath the tracing paper and then transfer it. If you don't have commercially made transfer paper, like this double-sided red transfer paper that I'll be using, you can make your own transfer surface by rubbing the back of your sketch with a little bit of a chalk, maybe a chalk of a different color so that you can still see your line work through there. But if you have a red piece of chalk or a sepia crayon from a drawing class, that could work as well. I'm aligning my sketch with the block, try to get it centered as well as you can, and then I will be securing the back side of the transfer paper, the tracing paper, to the back side of the block. So I like to be able to peek underneath the transfer paper. Occasionally, I'm not taping it down at all four sides. I need to be able to lift that up. So I'm just sort of hinging it so that I can check on my progress. Now this red transfer paper is fairly expensive. It's also two-sided, which I haven't quite figured out the purpose of a two-sided piece of transfer paper, but it does make it easy so that you don't need to worry about a right side or a wrong side. Both sides will transfer red chalk. So I'm slipping that between my tracing paper and my block, and then I'm pulling it pretty tight. I can still see my image lightly there. So now I need to trace back over those lines. You want to be careful not to press so hard that you emboss the wood. If you press too hard, you can actually create a groove in the wood that will not ink up well. So use just enough pressure that you can transfer your lines. You might check on your first lines just to make sure things are transferring okay. That looks fine. So again, I'm using pretty light pressure and I'm just retracing those key lines. I'm not worried about scribbling in all the shading. That is a waste of the red transfer paper. And you do want to be able to use this red transfer paper multiple times. So I would use as few contours as needed to get the basic information across. Just a little cast shadow here from the handle. And remember, you will have your original sketch as a reference, so you don't need to necessarily spell out every detail at this point. Okay, I believe I got everything transferred. There it is. Oh, I forgot my horizon line. There's a, this is just where the sand or beach or whatever lies. Okay, there we have the design. Now the next step is to think about color coding or numbering the different areas so that you have an idea of which areas you want to cut away at each step. So we'll be doing that next.